and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's talk. This is the North Staffordshire Branch of the British Computer Society, and tonight we've got a talk by Professor Dorothy Monicoso. Dorothy.
Yeah.
Now, Richard is going to introduce Dorothy properly, but I just wanted to give people an overview of the plan for this evening. So we're going to start at 9 to about 9:50 for the talk. Then we've got hopefully some prizes to award, and then we'll move on to our annual AGM. So without me talking any further, Richard, over to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. So yes, thanks for coming, everyone. Just so that you're all aware, the session is being recorded, and if possible, can you all stay on mute for the duration of the talk? And if you have any questions throughout this, can you please pop them in the chat, and I'll try and collate those, and if we've got some time at the end, we'll pick some of those out. So basically, yes, this evening it's all about. I saw Dorothy in an online event earlier this year, and was inspired by what she said, and thought that it would make a great event to have a hackathon and obviously a talk to set the stage for that, to actually show what we can actually do. So in terms of our own projects and things like that, lots of people enjoy coding for fun and things like that. And so we thought about this idea, do the hackathon on a theme of IT for social good. So there's lots of things around IT at the moment where it's been classed as intrusive and things like that into society. But there's a lot of elements of it that are actually very good for society as well. And so we thought we'd do that with this hackathon. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Dorothy, who's going to give us a talk on the theme of IT for social good. Thank you very much, Dorothy.
Good evening, everybody. If you just bear with me a second while I share my screen. So let me know what you can, if you can, and what you can see.
Yeah, we've got that, Dorothy.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So thanks very much, Richard, for inviting me tonight. I was quite looking forward to this talk, and following on from the one I gave early in the year to BCS. So just a bit of an introduction before I jump into IT and sort of a bit of my work. So I've centered a talk around the sort of research I done, some commercial work I do. In fact, I wear two hats. I work for a company, a commercial company as CTO, a health and well-being company, in charge of everything to do with IT and research, data science, with respect to their services and clients and so on. But I'm also a university professor. I recently moved from Leeds to Durham, so you'll probably see in my slide some references to my previous university credit where it's used. Some of the work, a lot of the work was conducted over there. So it's no point pretending it's all Durham. Yeah, essentially over the past few years, I've been involved in health care technologies, but my background is from something quite different. Well, on the surface, quite different. I started off once I graduated in electronic engineering. I started off in the space sector. I'm designing computer systems, so satellites, small satellites, and then spending some time at JPL, NASA, on autonomous spacecraft, and that's where I got the bug for AI. So yeah, so now I really just apply the same sort of techniques, tools, and so on I learned applying AI to spacecraft. I apply the same to healthcare technologies. So IT for social good. A lot of my work in recent years has been around supporting independent living, around people with any sort of challenges, whether it's physical, cognitive, and so on. How can we help them use technology to help them live independent lives? So it's quite a challenge. And although on the surface, quite a lot has been done, we're not quite there yet. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And I'll just present to you today some of my ideas and some of the research I've been doing along these lines. One slide I like to show people is the technology continuum. And before we go into smart homes, because if you think about just walking aids, from the simplest, which are always quite effective, to the more complex mind control systems. And it just shows how at both ends of the scale, technology are equally useful. And it takes quite a lot of, there's quite a lot of difference in terms of the complexity, but the whole point about it is, part of my research is how can I hide that complexity so that to the user, it's just any old device. Now, if you look at smart homes, they've been around for a long time in the guise of home automation, and now there's so many devices. You cannot go to any shop without even Sainsbury's or Tesco. I'm sure you'll find some home automation device. But most of it is focused on what I would say healthy average person, Joe Public. You think about home automation, you think about remote control of your heat, your lights, your appliances, and probably entertainment equipment and so on. And there's so many devices nowadays. And I won't even say the name when you talk about voice control, because if I do say the name, she might just wake up in my office here. So all sorts of devices now, voice control. There may be some limitations, but it's amazing what there is. But a lot of this is just for convenience, and a lot of it is for geeks, people like myself who go out and buy the latest of every gadget that happens to come out. And then we start thinking about beyond convenience. I mean, think about reminders for medication. You think about fall detection in various types, and friendly face recognition, which you can have attached in a sense attached to typical sort of doorbell systems, video-based doorbell systems. But what if, and this is where it starts getting really exciting, what if? So looking again at the continuum, but this time in terms of smart homes, starting from the telecare. I remember when I was an undergraduate, BT had this telecare system, an alarm pendant. When you look at it now, you think, wow, moving to the smart or home, automated home with lots of sensors. You can control things from your mobile phone, your iPad. But then I'm thinking, what if the home actually looks after you? So this is beyond just an open loop where perhaps there's even a closed loop heating and so on. But what if the home actually looks after you? And this is where a lot of my work is, your home looking after you. So what do you need for your home to look after you? And this is what I'll talk to you a bit about later. But even going beyond that, many of you, I'm sure, would have seen the film Robot and Frank. It made me laugh because that's how I kind of imagine my old age to be living with this robot. And in fact, I have spent some time trying to live with a robot. I'll probably say something about that shortly. And even going further, you probably have seen the series a few years ago, Humans. So yes, I think it's quite obvious by now that I'm really into technology. But having said that, I don't necessarily accept everything at face value. So smart home, why the smart home? Thinking about supporting, helping people live independently. What do you actually want the smart home to do? If you think about it, the smart home becomes your carer. So what does it do? It gathers information about your activities of daily living, what you call ADL, meaning your everything you do from the time you get up and going to the shower, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, making yourself some breakfast, eating, going out, coming back, watching TV, reading books, or whatever you do during the day. So you want to gather information about that. You want your home to gather information about all those things to be able to differentiate between what you're doing. And the whole idea is that it's not just for the sake of it, is to alert carers or alert you for that matter when there is a need to do that. And hopefully it does facilitate rehabilitation, help you live independently by giving prompts if you're forgetful, as is the case, often the case with Alzheimer's, dementia, and so on, and become forgetful. So your home hopefully can help you and remember what you need to do. And this is, you're talking about beyond the medication reminders. This is about literally understanding what you're doing. Let's say if you're in the kitchen, the sequence of steps you're taking to, for example, cook your meal, make your tea. Understanding your house understands every single step and can help you, remind you if you've forgotten to do something. Yes, I know it sounds very Big Brother-ish, but that's another aspect of my work. What can you do about that? So the two main two main areas, I mean, there are more than that, but two main areas of interest in when you're thinking about a smarter, in terms of looking after you, what does it need to do? For a start, it needs to be able to recognize what you're doing at any particular time. So how do we do that? We have a whole bunch of sensors. And so far, it looks pretty much like the home automation. We have sensors. Those sensors are probably more targeted towards understanding you and your needs. So you may have environment sensors, fairly inobtrusive, lights, light status, anything, literally anything that's an appliance or a door that can move is automated and can sort of give information about the status to say a computer system somewhere. Then you have more intrusive sensors such as cameras, and I'll say a bit more about that later. If you're talking about looking at observing what people are doing, who wants a camera in your bathroom? So I'll say something more about it. Then you have all the wearable sensors. They can give something about activity level, physiological measurements, and so on. And what do you do with all that? Well, you start thinking about computation models. This is when the number crunching starts. So you take in all that data and you try and make sense of it. You try and make sense of it by literally learning. In a sense, this is where the machine learning or artificial intelligence comes in, because we are typically thinking about how do we recreate, in a sense, as a human being, you make a set of observations and you make deductions about what's actually going on. So our models do exactly the same thing. Given the data, it learns something about the person. It learns something about the behavior of the person. So that's exactly what you want to do. And why would you want to do that? If we have a model of the person's behavior, we can start understanding the sequence of events, how the day is planned, and so on. If we know how the day is planned, we know if something has gone wrong because they've done something unusual. And pushing it to the extreme, when I'm working with doctors, another reason for building models of behavior is that we can use it to assess progression of a disease. We've done that, for example, in Parkinson's, looking at, and this is on small scale, so it's not the entire home we've automated, but certainly certain objects within the home. And we can look at progression. So between visits to the doctor, to the consultant will have an idea of how you're doing. And obviously, the most exciting one is predictive analytics. If you have a model, you can predict what's going to happen, hopefully, what's going to happen in the future. Now, at the very simplest, what you do with all this data is looking at, you have a pattern. I get up in the morning, get dressed, shower, brush my teeth, get dressed, go to work, come back, and so on. Something goes wrong. It deviates from, my model tells you that I'm deviating from my norm. So send in a carer, give a phone call, and so on. But in a sense, when you're looking at that, it also tells you something about the person in more detail, in the sense that, let's say you have more and more frequent trips and falls, then it says something about the progression of your ability to be independent, to live independently. It could also tell you something about forgetfulness if you keep on forgetting your keys. Let's say you have your keys have been instrumented sensors on your keys and so on that connect to the computer system. So a lot of it is just about trying to help people live independently by providing means to support in whatever condition their problem may be. So it could be in terms of cognitive, forgetfulness, it's physical, falling, for example, falls. One of the things that doctors often say to me is that falls are one of the most frequent causes of hospitalization for, I think it's over 70s. And quite often, first fall, you're in hospital, and there's a good chance you don't come out of hospital. So there's a lot of different ways we can actually support people. Now, if you think about coming back to the computational models, if you think about it, how are we going to actually build our models? I sort of mentioned the word machine learning, and that relies on having lots and lots of data to learn from. But unfortunately, when you're doing this sort of work, we often lack the information, we often lack the data. And what I did here, put in at the bottom right hand, was a picture. In one of the papers we wrote was we used data from what's called a public data set. So you'd find various universities, researchers, they'll put online, they'll create a data set and put this on, make this available to everybody. Now, one of the drawbacks about this is that, for example, we may be building our models on using a data set that's not exactly what it would be in the home of a person who actually needs it. So that's the first drawback, not to mention issues around privacy and so on. So this is just one of the first sort of challenge you usually encounter when you're doing this sort of work. Talking about challenges, another issue that we often have is, let's say, even if we can develop a perfect system, which we are far from that anyway, but let's say we could, there's always the issues of acceptance of technology. And it tends to vary from country to country. When I've done quite a lot of work in the past with Japan, and their view of technology is very different. So we have quite a lot of work to do from that respect in the UK. And one of the solutions, and one where myself and most of our sort of colleagues and people who work in the field, is the realization that you need to work with your end users. And I know that for many of you, it's the most obvious thing. Why would you try and design something without even asking the people who use it? But in fact, that's how a lot of the engineering and research happened in the past. And it's only now that we're really learning to work with the end users. And let's face it, most of our funders, so research funders, whether it's the UK Research Councils, the EU research programs, or wherever, they would not fund your research if you're not working very closely, co-creating with the end users. Now, I mentioned ethics and privacy concerns, and as soon as you talk about cameras, yes, cameras provide a lot more information. So if you think back at what I've seen, sensors, lots of sensors in the home, you're thinking about the simpler sensors like environmental sensors, motion detection, presence sensors. Fine, they tell you somebody is located in the room. You may have an idea how long they've been sitting in a chair with a chair sensor. That already gives you some information. The person has been sitting down the entire day. We don't want that. But if you really want to start looking at more detailed understanding of behavior. So for example, somebody has the reminder for the medication went off. They opened the box, but did they actually take the medicine? Or somebody is cooking and supposed to be eating. Are they actually eating? Now, there's all sorts of different things you could ways of sensing you can think about, but realistically, the simplest would be a camera. But again, who wants a camera? Okay, so there's all sorts of issues along these lines. And one of the things we often talk about is the blind camera. So you're working on a camera, so no information goes out, leaves the camera. If effectively only textual information leaves the camera. So let's say you have a fall detector in a house. It detects a fall, but all that goes out is a text message saying there's a fall in location, say in the bathroom. That's it. No video ever goes out. Now, one can argue that somebody can hack and so on and so forth, but it's a step, I think, in the right direction. Another issue when you're dealing with artificial intelligence, this is something which, in a sense, is relatively new. It's not new, the concept, but it's only really recently that a lot of us have started really looking at it really seriously. It's bias in AI. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the classic example of bias in AI is face recognition systems that cannot recognize people of African origin, so darker skinned people and so on, and different variations. Or for example, one of postdocs in our lab had developed a system that was supposed to recognize gender, so male, female. And every time I walk past it, it said male because I have short hair. Now, those are sort of, this example, just laugh it off, it's funny. But if you think about bias in AI and bias in the context of our health systems, the implications can be simply atrocious in terms of unintended outcomes. So the outcome is not at all what you intended, and it's probably in a sense, discriminating. So your AI discriminating against a group for some reason or another. So those are issues which, aside from the simple privacy concern of your video image being seen by somebody else, is also the issue of bias, which is becoming increasingly important. And in the last year, it's now become the case that any sort of research funder would require you to have an assessment of the potential for bias in your system, which is quite a good way forward. And a lot of it relies on having what's now called explainable AI. So being able to explain the decision that was made, that how your system arrived at a specific particular decision. So another problem we have got often, or challenge we have got often, is that I find that when I'm working with, especially now working mostly co-creating with end users, is you tend to find a lot of people at both extremes. AI, I believe in technology, it's a solution to every problem. It's fantastic, or I just don't even want to see it. I just don't want to know. And you're often faced with those two opposite situations which you need to deal with. And I think part of our role as engineers is not just about designing and developing the system. Apart from part of the co-creation is getting people to understand the limitations as well as the benefits of these systems. And I think it's very important that people understand, especially those who are the extreme of thinking technology is going to solve all our problems, understand what are the limitations of the technology. The other thing that's becoming increasingly important, a few years ago, we often talked about technology replacing jobs and replacing different aspects of our decision making in our daily life, but increasingly, and especially in the context of ethics, the ethics of AI, we talk about technology complementing, and effectively a lot of the requirements are that we have always have a human in the loop. So this is an interesting. So moving away from technology is going to replace humans and so on. Now we're talking about technology with a human in the loop. Ultimately, yes, the AI can make a decision, can take a decision, can arrive at some sort of, but a human should be overseeing before executing, implementing whatever decision the AI made. And this is increasingly important because whenever nowadays in the recent months talking to potential sort of users in terms of stakeholders rather than users, stakeholders such as local councils, a lot of the requirements are about yes, good to have AI, good to automate systems, can save us money, but we always want a human in the loop. Okay, some more of the pitfalls really around security and privacy and so on, which I've already discussed. One of the main ones is about the reliability of the systems. We talk about smart homes and supporting independent living, but how reliable these systems are. And if I'm honest with you, as it is, current technology as it is, we still have a long way to go. A lot of concerns regarding robustness of system, repeatability, and so on, but also the human factors. How do we make these systems easy to use or transparent entirely? How am I doing for time?
Yep, we're still okay, Dorothy. Sorry, about another 5-10 minutes. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I want to talk about another. I'll talk about another specific system, which is some of the work which I call the rehabilitation. The virtual physiotherapist for rehabilitation stroke survivors. This system came about a few years ago. I was chatting to a physiotherapist at lunch, and he had collected a lot of data in his research work. We're using activity centers with his patients, but had no idea what to do with the data. And it just occurred to us at the time that we can use that devices and to support rehabilitation. Initially, we started with activity centers looking at doing rehabilitation exercises, but then we decided to move to camera system. So typically post-stroke, you have possibly paralysis on one side. So the whole idea is that repetitive training daily, several times a day, hundreds of repetitions a day to try and regain some movement, some function in the arm, for example. So they're fairly, for able-bodied people, those exercises are very simple and very easy to do. But imagine following post-stroke, they're quite sort of difficult. So the whole idea was started in the early prototype we used. Many of you probably recognize a Kinet. And the whole idea was to sort of look at joint trajectory. So exercising, you're lifting an arm, for example, we observe the motion and analyze motion to be able to sort of, in a sense, compare that to a reference. At the time, naively, we were thinking comparing to a reference, a healthy volunteer, and you can imagine how discouraging that would be for the person who can barely move an arm to be compared to an able-bodied person. So in the end, we started doing doing a relative comparison to the previous day, so that hopefully you can see progress. And that project started off from a simple sort of student project, and so eventually evolved where we developed this system where we have a patient's view and a clinician view, and the clinician prescribes exercises by recording an exercise, and the patient at home can sort of look at the recorded exercise and repeat. And at the same time, the system is capturing the emotion, analyzing the emotion, and sending information back to the clinician who can look at it at any time whenever they want. So all along, every day they're practicing at home, that information is relayed back to the doctor, and they can see progress or no progress at all. We had a test, we had sort of work with clinicians where we had this was just the very first consultation session with clinicians, neurologists at Leeds General Hospital and so on, and they were just giving us feedback as to what they thought, how useful it could be and how we could improve the system. This is just an example based on the Kinet, with web-based. The whole system is web-based, so you don't need any special equipment, equipment for that. We eventually, in the latest incarnation, what we've done, we've actually removed the Kinet entirely, and any webcam, any camera can do. And this is because the whole idea is trying to reduce the cost and reduce reliance on third-party hardware. So we currently use literally any webcam you can think of, whether it's your mobile phone or your laptop, we can do the same thing. One of the things we decided to do, and this is still the first prototype, is to looking at how can we motivate, because it's all very well saying you have the system at home that can help you perform rehabilitation exercises. But essentially, if you're post-stroke, chances that you're depressed, you're unmotivated. So looking at various gamification to try and improve the sort of motivation and sort of ensure adherence to your program of rehabilitation. So one of the things we're currently working on that, hoping to commercialize it in near future. We've already started. We've had some trials with patients, post-stroke stroke survivors, and this work is ongoing, and we're hoping that in the very near future we'll be able to run a study with some of the doctors, NHS doctors we're working with. This just is one of my students in the original system trying it out this was part of his PhD program. I think I'll stop here because I'll be running out of time. Although I have a couple more examples, but I think I've run out of time.
Okay, thanks, Dorothy. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
So,
has anybody got any questions? I've not seen any come through on the chat at the moment, but just in the meantime, I've got just something I wanted to put to Dorothy myself, in that I've got an elderly relative who suffers with mixed dementia, and one of them being Alzheimer's and so on. And you mentioned about obviously the trying to sort of get people to accept the technology into the home, that kind of thing. And one of the things that I thought of was potentially to use the mobile phone as a fall detector. I thought I can create the code and stuff needed to do that, because the accelerometers in the phone are really sensitive nowadays, and with a bit of machine learning as well, you can get it to actually detect the difference between the phone being placed down on a table, for example, and the patterns that you would get from it if it was on somebody when they fall down and everything. And so you can gather that data, and you can obviously come up with a fall log, if you like, of when potentially somebody is stumbling or falling. But the issue, I think, is how easy is it then to be able to get that data into the hands of the professionals and the social care workers and so on, and the doctors who are actually looking after a person, because it seems that in a lot of cases the technology they're using is way behind. I can't even email my doctor. If I wanted to get those results for this person, I would have to physically download them, print them out, and hand over a piece of paper to the doctor for them to be able to do anything with it. And so how do you sort of tackle that challenge, in that great having the technology, but how do you get the data to the right people who can actually make use of it?
I mean, that's a very good question, and in a sense, it's probably the biggest challenge we have, because as you're right, as you say, a lot of the time the technology is already there. It's just a question of getting it to those who can make sense of it, who can make use of it. There are various ways, which in a sense is still very small scale in that it'd be difficult to just go out and say to your chances that your GP wouldn't listen to you rightly or wrongly. But there are various programs, including run, for example, by the academic health networks and so on, various research, working various research groups and medical schools that do research and so on. There's no really easy answer to that. It's something that's really one of our most difficult issues. But I'm kind of hopeful that with the new organizations such as NHSX, things are going to be changing, and fairly slowly, but changing. I mean, if you think for start, 2 years ago, there was not a single design, let's say design guide. And suddenly, I think it was December, late 2019, NHS Digital came out with a design guide to sort of support digital designers in terms of the do's and don'ts to ensure that the technology is suitable for the NHS. And I think that's a first step, because they're recognizing that people are out there doing all those things. And so in that sense, they can support you with evaluation and so on. But it is a very difficult problem, which it'd be good if we could get a solution quicker, because there's already a lot of technology out there. And sometimes the question is not about designing new technology, it's just putting to use what's already there.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, so we've got a question that's coming from Dr. Sandra Woolley. So he says, like, thank you for the fantastic presentation. He says, what's your vision of robots in the home? And what do you think these may be like, and what they will do, and how they will become acceptable?
Yes, in fact, yeah, robots in the home. It's something I think, well, I'll say it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Some countries are ahead of us in that respect. So, for example, Japan, because they have a greater acceptance of technology. But certainly, even in UK, we're working towards that. For example, the Bristol Robotics Lab has been working on several research projects using robots in the home. And in fact, I alluded to that earlier. And one of the robots is a care robot for older adults. And before, the project was about placing the robot in and working with a care home. But before taking the robot to their care home, they wanted, in the lab, we wanted somebody to spend some time living with the robot. And guess what? I pulled the short straw and I had to spend a week with the robot. And honestly, I'm really into technology. I don't think there's anybody who's more into technology than I am, but after a couple of days, the robot was literally driving me mad. At this stage, we're not at the stage yet where you can safely say a robot can stay with somebody who is not necessarily interested in technology, somebody just wants to live their life. You're certainly not there, and we're very far from that. But I like to think that we're approaching. And I think the way to approach that problem is not to say, okay, let's just have a robot in a home. It's step by step. What can we have in the home? So for example, if you think about somebody who's got difficulty feeding themselves, you could have their various even commercial robotic arms that have been designed for feeding. So it's a gradual step. It's not just having a humanoid suddenly turning up at your doorstep, like in Frank and the Robot, the film. It's step by step, and I think that's the way to go if you're going to accept the technology. Now, other countries have got different. There's quite a few explanations as to why robots have greater acceptance in Japan, primarily through their religion and so on. So they have a much greater acceptance, and they could probably go straight from to the robot in the home, whereas I think we'd have to go through different stages in terms of different robotic devices as opposed to humanoid robots in the home.
Great, thank you. Got another question from Jonathan Westlake now. Again, thank you for a fantastic insight. Question in 3 parts. How much lead time has it taken to create your own data set? We'll do that one first and then we'll move on.
It takes quite a while, because let's think about the data set I created in my own home. So I had lots of sensors in the home. If I'm looking at trying to build a profile of my daily life, thinking you only get the data, you'd have to have full days worth of data for several days and months. And one of the things you may or may not know, when you're building computational models, the reliability of your model improves the more data you have. And obviously the data needs to be balanced. And what I mean by balance is that, for example, let's say in fact, that's a classic example of the face recognition problem. The models were tested on mainly white male faces. Therefore, you get to black female, it doesn't have an example. It hasn't learned to recognize. So if you think about the same thing, exactly the same thing can happen in a house. You're looking at different activities, certain activities occurring several times a day and others only rarely. So those will be more difficult and take more time to learn. And without wanting to give you an exact answer, it take you a few months before you have a reasonably decent data set. And I would say it starts improving after a year and so on.
So yeah, Jonathan's second part, it says it sounds like your data set is more of a data frame from a combination of data sources amalgamated. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then third, it says you mentioned public data sets. If you do use these, how much data cleansing has been necessary to give a good data set? And what techniques recommended?
So effectively, a lot of the data sets were generated by university researchers, usually PhD students and postdocs, probably imitating whatever activity. So quite often they're not necessarily representative of what you're trying to model. Now, in terms of data cleansing, you'll find that some data sets, usually they'll specify, your public data set will specify the degree to which it's been cleansed and so on. And quite often you'll find people have just recorded students themselves in the labs or wherever, and just place all the data, and it's really up to you to figure out, how good it is. On the other hand, you'll find data sets, curated data sets, where you'd have a certain level of data cleansing and so on. Now, things are quite different. When you're talking about sensors, the sort of simple sensors, probably that you find in a home, so environmental sensors or whether it's Fitbits and so on, collecting data, as opposed to the data sets, video data sets. When you're looking at the sort of sensors, you'll find there's one particular University of Washington, which they have quite a lot of data sets online. Chances that nothing has been cleansed. You're talking about sensors in a home as opposed to no video, for example. Chances that those data sets haven't been cleansed. And that's, in a sense, it's a challenge, but it's also a way for you to test how good how robust your own algorithm is, because depending on sort of the noise you have in the data set, hopefully if you have a large enough and representative enough data set, hopefully your algorithm can deal with it. And obviously the other thing to note is that sensors improve. I'm thinking about a few years ago when I started on this work, we placed lots of sensors in a lab, and I was looking at the data, and being an engineer, for me, it's interesting to look at it from the perspective also of engineering. So strictly looking at the circuitry, the sensors and so on, and noticing a lot of noise. Seemed fairly random, but initially couldn't explain it until one day we suddenly realized that every time a truck passed or fairly heavy vehicle passed, it was triggering, causing electrical interference. Our Wi-Fi sensors are picking that up, and so on. And so therefore, we could cleanse the data. So it really depends. Cleaning is really issue, because it really means you have to understand your data in order to clean it properly. And when you have public data sets, you don't know the conditions under which they were recorded, and therefore cleaning it, you could actually be removing useful, real information.
I think, sorry, I was going to say, as you say, I think definitely looking at public data sets, in particular sensory data rather than text-based data, the risk of interference from outside sources is quite high, and there's been numerous cases of that highlighted, hasn't there, where ML models have been proven to be picking up on the wrong information just because they've learned from something that isn't actually what you're trying to target within the data set. Okay, cool. So just a couple more now, I think. So if I can get the name right, it's Guillaume Everard. So has asked us, say a relative's got a subscription to a motion sensor bracelet and pendant, so it's there as an assistance in case of a fall. Listening to the presentation, I just wondered if there's a demonstrated preventative effect of such devices where just wearing or using the device reduces the likeliness of a fall happening in the first place, if that makes sense. So I think
Are you talking
what he's
like a
asking is about a
placebo?
placebo effect, yes,
Yeah.
of actually having the device there.
I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know, and I'll be inclined to think not, but I really don't know.
And I would say certainly with my relative who has a history of sort of falls and things like that, I would say that it's probably not the case, and that it's certainly since changes in medication, she's been loads better and stuff like that, but the when it comes to the you know, sort of unsteadiness on the feet, it's been very random, and she's got absolutely no control over it whatsoever. Yeah. So yeah, Charlie says, great insights, thank you. You mentioned likely commercial application for stroke recovery. Are you aware of any other specific areas, and when we might see such systems being used in the public domain?
Well, I actually, one of the things that came out of talking with neurologists at the start of the project, or some about a year into the project, was that they were suddenly telling us about all sorts of different areas, especially neurodegenerative conditions where it could be used, and including, for that matter, sports recovery. So there are a number of areas, but if you, one of the things that came out of this was that, talking to a neurologist, consultant neurologist who is specializing in dementia, one of the things we realized is some of the motion we're detecting is actually similar to some of the tests he carries out when he's doing a triage in his clinic. So there's a lot of different application areas where just with a tweak here and there, you could actually apply and make use of the same system or similar system.
Cool. Okay, thank you. And I think the last one we'll do now. So Michael Guy says, carers come in different forms professionally, either living in or visiting husbands, wives, children, parents, friends, and so on. Would a robot in the home need to have a personality in order that the person being cared for can relate to it or him?
I think that will be the holy grail. That's because, yes, mechanical support, yes, we're not there yet, but essentially, yes, you need to have a robot that can actually has a personality. Otherwise, it's not worth. And that was part of the frustration I had when I was trying to spend the week with a robot, because I just had something that was chasing me along all day long, asking me if I was okay, waking me up in the middle of the night to check. It was actually trying to check if I was okay in the middle of the night, but actually, because I'm a light sleeper, it was waking me up. And I could hear trundling about the house in the middle of the night. So yeah, you have to really like robots to want to spend time with them at the moment.
Great. And we'll just do this last one because I think it's a good one as well. So Miriam Lamar says, did the virtual physio research improve patient compliance to their exercise program? Well,
this is actually this is what we're currently working on. So I cannot say yes or no now. This is a current state of the project. We're trying to evaluate. So with a few patients, but we've actually applied for funding to try and have a larger scale clinical study to evaluate, because we would really like to push it forward. But before doing so, we have to look at the effectiveness, but also make sure we meet medical certification. So that means safety and so on.
Okay. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, and I think we'll sort of wind it up there. And I'd like to say, Professor Monaco, say that it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been brilliant to hear you talk. Thoroughly enjoyed all of that. And so, yeah, so if anybody's interested in taking part in the hackathon, that's going to happen over this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 20th and 21st. And the plan is that it's on the same theme of IT for social good. So anything that you can think of, little projects that might fit that theme are all welcome. And we're going to be hosting the event in association with Hack Keel, their student hack society, and they're going to be hosting the actual online platform for us. So it's going to be done in a combination of using the actual platform, which I'm just rapidly trying to find my link to it. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat so you can see it. It's going to go on DevPost and Discord. So Discord will be handling the actual sort of messaging and so on for the teams, and there is, I'm just putting that in the chat now. There's a dev post link there as well, so the actual resources and things like that, and there's will be available in dev post. There's chat rooms and so on there. There's also the ability on dev post to submit your entries. So the idea will be is that we're starting at 9:30 on Saturday morning, and there'll be just a bit of an intro there to let you know about what's expected for the event. The development time will start at 10 AM on the Saturday, and for those people who are students at Keel, there's the option of taking place in person for the Saturday morning, because there's a Keel open day on as well, so it seems to tie in nicely with that. So for those who want to attend in person, it'll be held in the Colin Reeves building in room CR010, which is on the ground floor computer lab. So the event will take place both online and in person for those guys. It'll run throughout the Saturday. Those are taking place in person. It will finish at 5 PM when the open day closes, but then they'll be able to switch to carry on online from that point onwards. And the final time for submissions will be at 5 PM on the Sunday. So if you can have all your entries posted on DevPost by then, that's when the submissions closes, and we'll then go on to some judging. And Dorothy has kindly agreed to be a guest judge for us, and so she'll hopefully be able to pick out some really good ideas from that, and we'll announce the winners through the DevPost platform at 7 PM on the Sunday. And there's actual money prizes up for grabs as well if people are interested. So there's a £100 first prize, and then runners up second and third will get £50 each, and then there's a judge's wild card for for whatever sort of entry takes the fancy that might warrant a prize but maybe doesn't quite stick to the original theme or things like that. It's entirely up for grabs, that one. So yes, it'll be absolutely great if you could join us for the hackathon, everybody, and certainly pass on the details if you've got anybody you think might be interested in joining us for that, who hasn't actually been able to come along to the talk tonight. Please share those links that are in the chat at the moment, and you'll be able to also find it on the North Staff's BCS website shortly. It's not there just at the moment, but the link will be there. So if you haven't had a chance to grab these links, you'll be able to search North Staff's BCS, and on our events section you'll see a link there that takes to these to give you the option to register there. So yes, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks again, Dorothy, and I'll hand over now to Charlie. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Richard, and Dorothy. Yes, thank you very much indeed for spending your time this evening to educate us further in how we should be looking to make IT good for society. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So moving on in terms of our agenda, that brings to the end of the talk. And as Richard mentioned, there is the hackathon. So please take some time to take a copy of the link. We've also got a little bit of a presentation to do. The branch offers prizes to students at both universities, actually, and it's been a bit difficult to do things positively like this over the COVID lockdowns, but thankfully we're kind of getting back into normal, although we can't present these things individually yet or personally yet. So if I can just pass across to Jonathan Westlake, who's going to announce and hopefully present some of the prizes for the Staffordshire University students. Jonathan?
Thanks, Charlie. Yes, it's two prize winners with us this evening. There were 3 altogether. So we've got Jessica Goodgrove and Luke Turner. If you've got your web cameras with you, both of you, if you just want to switch them on, then we can just see you. There's Luke. Hi, Luke. And there's Jessica coming. Hi, Jessica. So I in true digital fashion, I've already emailed Jessica and Luke with their sort of prize as such, which is a little cash prize, and also student membership for the rest of their course. They're both on the second year of their computer science degree. Well, you'll be doing a placement, I think, both of you as well. I'd imagine, so it's really 4 years here, but they're just sort of in semester 1 of their first year. So really, it's to just really announce the prizes for both of you, and the third prize winner was David Bulis, who can't be with us tonight. So it's really to congratulate Luke and congratulate Jessica on an outstanding first year. You know, it's based on your outstanding results from the cohort for the first year, and that's how we assessed really who to give the prizes to. And so well done to both of you, and we look forward to perhaps you attending a few more BCS North Staffs meetings. And I'll be in touch with the cohort. I only had a brief moment last week, if you recall, in Robin's session. It was rather packed. We had we had lots of speakers, and I think I had 2 minutes at the end when I did introduce the concept of the student chapter. So as a branch, we're hoping that both of you and David can be involved in perhaps helping us set up a student chapter, which already exists at Keele Uni. Sandra's here, who's been sort of involved with that. So we're hoping to replicate really a sort of a student body at Staffordshire, which will be young people, the students on courses, and they can perhaps start to look at events which they can collaborate with Keele, but also run their own events at Staffordshire. That's the idea, and that's got certainly the department head, Russell Campion, Dr. Russell Campion's support as well. So congratulations to both of you. You know, keep it up. I think all the branch really wish you all the best for the rest of your studies. You know, for semester 1, semester 2, and I'll see you physically, sort of soon. I think I'm going to come to one of the sessions, probably one of Robin's sessions online, and perhaps explain a bit more fully what the student chapter's about, rather than sort of in a brief minute or two. Okay. So if you wanted to say a couple of words, both of you, you're welcome to.
Ladies first.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, last year was a pretty tough year for everyone, really. So yeah, thank you very much for the recognition.
Thank you. Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. Again, thank you very much. It's much appreciated.
Great
Let you
stuff.
take it away with it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for both. Thank you both. Over back to you, Charlie.
Yeah, great. Well done, guys. Congratulations. And we have a similar award to make to 3 Keele students, but their process is slightly different. So hopefully that we'll do that next time with a bit of luck. The other thing just to mention to people before we move on to the AGM element is we are hoping to organise future events as hybrid events. That's the plan. So there's a new room in Staff's Uni in the Mellor building. It's supposed to be set up for hybrid meetings. So with a bit of luck, the next time we'll meet, we'll try and make use of that. So look out for that. So the idea being we want to try and get back to a bit of face-to-face, which is what the BCS branches do best, really, and hopefully get some speakers, maybe a remote speaker as well. But obviously we don't want to lose the fact that some people may not wish to join physically yet anyway, and may not be able to, and so on. So look out for that too. So I just want to thank Dorothy again. Thank you very much, Dorothy, for your support for the branch events. Thank you very much, and to Richard for setting this up. And I think we'll just take a 2-minute break. Well, let's call 5 minutes, shall we? 8:05. It's just gone 8 o'clock. So we'll start the AGM in 5 minutes. So for those that would like to stay, we're going to stay for our annual general meeting, which will start in 5 minutes. So thank you very much indeed. Okay, I think we're about 5 past now, and I think we've got we're greatly reduced in numbers. So if I could just ask all the existing committee members to turn on their cameras, please, if you can. Those that have been able to attend this evening, and we can maybe just call to order. Okay, make sure we've got. Jonathan's probably nipped out, so I'm just waiting for Jonathan to come back. Sandra, are you able to turn on your camera, please? Thank you. Jonathan, you back? Nope. It's taking them longer to boil that kettle.
I'm here.
Aha! There he is. He's back again. No, you'd be like to see, haven't you? That's what you'd be like to see. You've been
I've been out to see.
you've been putting the creels in.
I'm just going to just getting the lobsters in. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so look, we'll try and get through this and hopefully under an hour. Thank you for those guys that have stayed to attend the AGM. The AGM is a mandatory thing that we must do each year for the branch to continue. So we give 2 weeks notice minimum of the AGM, which we've done, and we kind of just go through a very brief agenda and go over what's happened in the past year, as if we want to remember. But anyhow, we'll go through that anyway, bit by bit. Okay. So welcome introductions. What I just thought would be nice to do is just to go around the current committee and everybody say who they are. So my name is Charlie Houston Brown. I'm the current chair. Hello.
I'll go next.
Yep.
Jonathan Westlake. I'm the secretary and vice chair.
Hi, I'm Chris Snee. I'm the treasurer.
I'm Richard Gosling. I'm a committee member and also responsible for inclusion and diversity.
Hi, I'm Sandra Woolley and I'm Education Liaison Officer.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. That's who we've got this evening, but we are quorate, so we can continue. I'm just assuming, I don't know, the other 3 guys that are on, Jennifer, Call, and Jake. I'll make an assumption that you guys are members of the BCS and therefore have voting rights. Okay, yep. I'll make that assumption for now.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can obviously we can rule people out if we find that they haven't. But I think we'll be okay on that. So that's that. In terms of apologies, we have had apologies from some committee members because they're otherwise committed, obviously. So Ian Sunley said his apologies. Tim Chapman, Kevin Taylor also said his apologies. And I haven't heard from Colin actually, but we'll record Colin's apologies anyway, and Kim, I think too. Okay.
Okay.
So in terms of minutes of the previous AGM, let me just there. These are draft minutes because they're draft until they're approved at this AGM. And so we met again by Zoom, although it was on GoToWebinar at the time actually. We had the chairman's report, treasurer's report, as you would expect, and then we went on to elections. And these were the committee members that were elected. And then, John, you did your presentation on COVID-19 mitigation. And we simply then asked about portfolios, a bit more on that in my report. Okay, so I propose that these, well, first, has anybody got any concerns with the minutes? Anything that you'd like to change or update or? Okay, so I propose these minutes are accepted.
There are 2 L's in Woolley, Charlie, that's all.
Okay, we can get that changed. Let's get that changed. 2 L's, 2 O's, 2 L's. Yep. Yeah, thank you. Jonathan, you can change that.
Yeah, sorry, I'll change that. Sorry.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'll second those, Charlie. I've reviewed those. They're
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
that's lovely. Thank you very much. So let's take those as done. We'll go back to the agenda. That's the minutes. Matters arising. Well, in terms of matters arising, really, there wasn't much, but we did talk about portfolios, and I just thought this really, which is kind of what we did. And I just wanted to explain what portfolios really are. The BCS has got a list of rules for how branches, or how member groups actually, which is branches, specialist groups, and student chapters and international sections, how they should be done. And there's some rules defined, and they're defined as rules really, but some are mandatory, some are not. But what we decided to do as a committee was adopt portfolios of interest, because aside from the mandatory rules, the rest is kind of left up to an individual committee. So that's what we ended up on really. And I think, as Richard mentioned, he's kindly taken on the inclusion officer, which is a real help to the branch, because previously that fell on the chair to do that role really, because it's mandatory, so it has to be done. But obviously you spread it very thinly and it doesn't get done so well really. So it's really great that we've got Richard in that role. We've got Tim and Kevin. Tim looking at STEM, Kevin looking at industrial liaison, and Colin, who's an avid, long-standing member of the branch committee, and also sits on a number of specialist group committees. So he's a specialist group liaison officer. Pardon me. Ian suddenly, without portfolio really, because Ian is really a long-standing supporter of the committee, and we rely on Ian really for his immense knowledge of what's gone on before, so we can not make the same mistakes in the past really. So that's kind of why that's there really. And then we've got Chris as treasurer, you mentioned, John as vice chair and secretary, and myself as chair. Now the mandatory rules all have descriptors, which can be seen on the BCS volunteer web pages, and whereas the other ones don't tend to have, because we've kind of made them up, which is fine, because they're portfolios of interest really to try and drive things forward. But you can see it's all about making IT good for society. So that was kind of the matters arising really. And it's just worth noting that those members that have decided that they are happy to stand for re-election. Now, this doesn't preclude anybody else on this meeting from wishing to join the committee or stand for a role, okay? But as you can tell from the attendance, we do have to rely on individuals to restand really. So we kind of take that on the chin, and we kind of are quite open about that really, about people restanding. But if either Cole or Jake, if you would like to put yourself forward for a role, then please don't feel that in any way that you're not able to. You are. It's a completely open thing, but you just need to say. And frankly, we would really appreciate the support and the help to try and move things forward in the local area. So that's that. Unfortunately, Kevin has decided not to stand. Kevin's got some expanded personal role. Business role. So personally, he's not able to kind of have the bandwidth to continue to support the committee. But we thank Kevin very much for his support, and I know that Kevin supports you also, Jonathan, in some of the work you do with the university. So Kevin has said he'll still keep in touch. He'll be a friend of the committee, really, but maybe not actually have that portfolio. So we do have a industrial liaison portfolio going begging if anybody would like to kind of adopt that. Okay, so that's kind of matters arising, but also covers a little bit left on the agenda. Pardon me. Yeah. So, and then I just go into the reports, Chair. Firstly, any questions on the matters arising? Any questions on the portfolio? No. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, just moving on to the report. Now, this report will be available on the branch website in due course, but it's kind of we use the standard format from the BCS because we've got to send this in anyway. So we use this really. And it kind of asks for 3 key successes. Being blunt really, the fact that we're still here really, and I don't mean here physically, I mean, that's a good thing for everybody personally to kind of not have suffered personally with COVID and so on. But the fact that we were able to continue some events and support some things really and move some things forward. And we made some new contacts and so on. So that's been good. I mentioned about appointing a proper inclusion officer, and I felt able to say that because I wasn't the proper one. You know, I was doing best endeavors. It's something that I believe it's very important, but I don't have the skill set to do that, whereas you know, Richard does. So that's real, and it's a mandatory role. So it's really great, you know, that Richard was able to take that on. So thank you. I think also I mentioned assigning portfolios. I think it does help clarity with trying to get things done. And one of the successes of that was we had a STEM event earlier in the year, and Tim Chapman was able to support that and presented that, which was great. And Tim's a big believer in STEM, so that was good. You know, the education work that Sandra does, you know, so we've got now good, you know, improving links between Keele and staff's uni in terms of the student chapters, and that's fantastic. That's what we are. We're very blessed as a branch. We've got 2 universities on our patch, and the fact that we're able to support them is great. And just for clarity, we used to award prizes for final year students. But from a BCS perspective, that's a bit late, really, we felt, in the end. So we agreed that we should award to second year students, smaller prizes, but to more second year students. And the prizes also include BCS membership, also to drive student chapter numbers. So it's kind of, there's a bit of an approach, shall we say, that's joined up thinking, really. Okay. So that's that, cover the portfolios. In terms of plans, well, student chapter, it's not so much, I think, that the student chapters are vital. They're not, but they are a sounding board for the future of the BCS. And also, as professional IT people, you know, that's what's coming, really. You know, so we need to make those young learners and you know, intelligent thinking people. We need to make sure that we speak to them about IT professionalism and the importance of making IT good for society. That's what we're here for as the BCS. So that's really important. And having it doesn't have to be a vibrant student community, really, but it's one that's kind of persistent, I think. That's what I wish for, where, you know, the student chapter continues year after year after year. It doesn't have to be hundreds of students all running about saying how good making IT for good society is. It has to be, you know, half a dozen or a dozen individuals that are interested and continue to move it forward, really. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And one of the key things, I mean, I've personally been involved in some other work at Centre, and one of the recommendations that a working group I was working for is to do something with the budgets, because the way in which student chapters get their budgets, well, they don't get any budget. They've got to apply for funding individually, which is understandable, but then it's got to go to a finance committee meeting, and you know, you're only talking typically £100 or £200. It's nothing really in the grand scheme of things. So I've asked for some more streamlined things that individuals can have. I've got the authority, but that's kind of outside the scope of this AGM, but that's kind of, you know, some work there on that. We did some work on STEM. We've also got a project that's been in the wings for 2 years regarding GDPR. We've been pushing very hard this year now for BCS HQ to allow us to hold a list of members that would be interested in helping final year students with their projects. We've been prevented from doing so through data protection, and I won't go into details of that. That's just how it is. But we're making some inroads. But it has been a 2-year slog. COVID hasn't helped, to be fair. Well, okay. Commercial organisations also. Unfortunately, we've lost Kevin for a while, but we want to get engaging with corporate organizations, and don't have to be large corporates. They just have to be, you know, handfuls of individuals to, again, about professionals for IT, and also getting speakers in. We did have some speakers from our local organisation this year, so that's been good, and we want to try and do that more. Reach out to get, because it should hopefully be good publicity for IT-driven businesses to come and present to the BCS. And if we can then mix it with number 4 hybrid meetings, they haven't got to travel. They can join for an hour like Dorothy's done this evening, and they can move it forward. So that's what we're hoping for. And I'm quite excited about this room at the staff's uni. So we'll see how that works out. The plan always was, and we were successful prior COVID, holding meetings elsewhere other than staff's uni. We did hold meetings at Keele, and we did hold the meeting in Stafford. So the plan is to continue to do that. Obviously, I think this year, with still COVID restrictions, that might be more difficult. But hybrid meetings is the point, really. I think that's what I think we want to try and do. Yeah? And it's been great, Richard, that this hackathon has been done as a hybrid meeting. That's been great. So students can turn up, have a sandwich or a drink or whatever, a cup of tea or whatever else they bring, alcoholic, and I think it's great. Good. It's the way we need to be thinking. So I know it's small scale, but small scale is better than no scale. So that's good. In terms of impediments, then, these haven't changed too much really. But this is back to the GDPR data protection thing. We have really poor member data. We know how many hours we've got. We'll come to it with graph in a minute as what we got, but we don't have any segmentation really to speak of too much really. There's no slowly moving data, about people, about changes. We don't get change data. It's all very snapshotty really. So that's a real impediment for us to be able to do some work really. We are losing members, but so is the BCS. So we're not unique to that, but we've had quite a reduction, I think. COVID could be a factor, but we need to do something, about that. Unfortunately, we have got some events in the pipeline for next year, and particularly, I know Sandra, the HCI conference is something I think we can make a bit of a splash with BCS name in the local area. We're really going to gear up to try and push the BCS name at that really. So it's really great that you, Sandra, are taking the lead on that conference, and the committee and hopefully BCS HQ will be able to support us on that. And then finally, the early career advocate role. So this is a new role, mandatory role for our committee to deal with, and it is defined as a separate role, not a portfolio. So it makes it extremely difficult. But the idea being, it's a good idea that we should be looking more toward, and we'll come to the demographics in a second, but we should be looking more to seek out the views of young people. But we're doing that through these student chapters. But the early career advocate really is between student and, I don't know, second, later career. I don't know. It's not so clear, but I think the idea is it's first, second role type things. So we need really to get somebody on our committee who has experienced that. So if either Jake or Cole, if you're in that kind of space of early career or know somebody that is and is a BCS member, then we're very keen to speak to them and encourage them. And we do have, because of some work that we did as a committee last year, we did some voluntary work for the BCS. So it was a community hack, and we were all awarded a thank you gift of membership of BCS, which was very kind of them. And as well as that, we negotiated, because some of our members are life members, Colin and Ian are life members, so we kind of negotiated that we could hold those memberships on for maybe the early career advocate role. So if we know somebody that's in an early career role that would benefit from a membership of BCS, if that's their impediment, because they have to be a BCS member, then we're able to support that. So please think about that if you know anybody who would be interested. And there is a support network for early career. There is, but it's about making sure that people understand the difficulty and how and how it needs to happen. So there is a support network there. So it's not like there's nothing there, but it is an impediment for us, I think, actually finding somebody. So some facts and figures then. This is kind of what we do get. Okay, we get like a bit of a dashboard, and that's your lot really. And you can see the profile clearly. You know, we have an aging membership. It's majority male, and most of us are professional members. Okay, well, aside from that, that's all you get. So we don't really know what else about the membership really, and this is a big thing we've been pushing. I've been trying to push with the working group at Centre really to try and say, well, what can we do to get better access to the data really? Okay, and then final comment from me. Yeah, challenging year, but we've still got a KO student chapter. So thanks again, Sandra, for your support on that. And I think with the work, Jonathan, that you're doing, you know, together, you know, we'll also get a staff uni chapter. I think the staff support on campus is vital, and getting that into the day-to-day, that's really, you know, and so that's that. And hopefully, you know, with the prizes supports that, and we can build on that really. And that then becomes hopefully one of the answers to early career, because if somebody graduates, they've been in the BCS, they're used to committee work and so on, then maybe they'll consider taking on an early career advocate role. Because the challenge with early career is you're only early career for a while. Yeah, so a couple of years and you're not on early career, you see. So you've got to keep that flow, you know, of people coming through. And as we know, that's difficult in committee work, really. Okay, and you know, continue to prepare for outreach. COVID kind of put the kibosh on it, really, but we have tried to support STEM, and I think that's kind of the way forward, really. So I'm hoping that you know, we'll further do some further work on this in the coming year on STEM, supporting STEM and trying to get more STEM ambassadors. We don't know, we can't find out how many STEM ambassadors we've got in our patch that are BCS members. I've asked that question, we don't know. I'd like to survey the members and record it, but data protection prevents me doing that. And you come back around again in circles. So yeah, I think we got some work to do on the data side, but you know, we're doing the best that we can, I think, with what we've got. And that's kind of it, really. We do have an awards thing. I just want to make people aware that you know, this is on the volunteer portal. So you know, and also long service awards. So if you know any BCS members that you feel should have an award or a long service award, you know, please let me know. I'm very happy to try and complete the paperwork for those individuals that needs to be done. You know, I've tried to badger this committee into it, and I've received mixed responses. I know people don't like to say thank you to themselves, but you know what, you should do, because you know, people put work in. They they should be thanked. It's not much, but at least there's some appreciation of the good work that gets done. Okay, so that's kind of it for me. Is anybody any questions? And that's the question for anybody, committee or non-committee members. Anybody think we should be doing something else? Nope. Okay, I'll take that silence.
Question, Charlie. Hold on, I did have one question. I was just getting my mute button off. The early career advocate role. So is that for a year?
There's no time stipulation for the role. Okay, it's a little bit woolly, and pardon the pun, Sandra. It's a little bit woolly in terms of that, but it is supposed to be like not undergraduate, so graduate, and in the first stages of work, because I think the BCS have identified that that's kind of where we don't have a lot of members, because we've seen with ours is the same. So in terms of age range, and it's not really age specific because it's supposed to be about career, but typically you're going to have the younger, you know, 20 to, you know, early 20s to mid 20s type of age group, really, of people in their early career, I guess. I think that's the target market, really. Although they are very clear that in the official descriptor for the role, it's not about age, you know.
No, I think it is really worth remembering, Charlie. Obviously, there are people who move into an IT profession from another one, isn't there? And so we mustn't exclude those. And to a certain extent, those are probably the ones who are looking for the most support, because they're under pressure to perform more quickly than, say, a new graduate, for example. Yep,
absolutely. But one of the things that's really interesting is that you come back to this, and you're pushing early career. So where's the marker that they're early career? There isn't one, right? So, you know what I mean? So yeah. I think the data set for membership for the BCS is really problematic. As I say, we've done, you know, the member group working group that I chaired throughout the last 12 months really has put this at the top of their list. But we need to do better with member group data really, because if there was a flag here for early career, something that had been in their career, then you would know, wouldn't you? You would know what's going on. You could target them. I don't mean like target. I mean, you could, you know, discuss with them, send them out requests for information, you know, seek to get events running that would support them and so on, you know. So it needs to be a bit more, you know, just appointing a role and saying it's mandatory is only part of the job really. You've got to resource it and support it accordingly.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. I think I might have somebody in mind for that role.
Yeah.
Role. So
Okay.
I'll forward some details. Yeah.
I was also going to say that I'm interested in the early career.
Yeah, great stuff.
Great, Jake.
Yeah, Jake's
fantastic.
Yeah, Jake had a bit of dialogue with me some weeks ago, didn't you, Jake? So
yeah.
That would be that would be great, Jake. Yeah, I'd support that.
Jake, if you and John already know one another, then why don't we set up a meeting between the three of us to suit and just talk it through? You know, as I say, we do have this. I know a little bit of a a carrot, I suppose, for 1 year of a membership. So you know that it's if nothing else, it might be worth that. But we're very, very keen to get you know, to get more committee members on board. So that'd be great, Jake. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let's do that. That's good. I'll drop you an email, Jake, and then copy Charlie in. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, brilliant.
I was just going to say, Charlie, as well, in the outreach about GradX. Yeah. I think it's in there somewhere. You've mentioned it.
Yeah, mentioning GradX up here. Yeah.
And there was the other thing about the computer science in schools that I did. It's not going back to the minutes from the last committee meeting as such, but there is an intention to actually do the computer science in schools conference starting again in the summer. Now we're over this sort of COVID hump, so that might be something you could just mention, which we have supported in the past.
Right.
Robin's, I think, Robin Oldham is thinking of bringing that back to life. I had a bit of dialogue with him the day or two ago.
Brilliant. So, well, I can put that in the plans then. I can make an amendment to this document before it goes in. Then
it's sort of that STEM umbrella, really, but it's a STEMmy kind of thing. But it's I know the teachers have thought well of it over the last sort of 4 or 5 years we've run it.
Understood. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sandra, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, just on a related point, I guess, really, and it connects with our seminar, which was, I thought, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So on EDI and the fact that Richard has helped, our committee really, I think, do a fantastic thing, and I think that Dorothy is a fantastic role model, and I think that this webinar will be excellent viewing for many. So these stats that you pointed me to, Charlie, were useful in one way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the things that we need to do, because the BCS membership is aging, but its women aren't. And so the female representation might actually go down. So we've got, we peak at the age of 26 to 30 for female members, and that peak is 27%. And from there, it's down, 23, 18.2, 15.6, 12, and it ends at 8.5%.
Gosh.
And then in terms of, so I really enjoyed looking at this data, but it was a bit depressing. So student memberships, 25% female. Of course, not everyone declares one way or the other.
Yes, of course, yeah.
13% professional, and then 7% fellow. So I'd love us to continue to do something, and I'm really passionate as one of those 7% fellows. I really would like to do something, not just about early career, and of course that's massively important, but about what goes wrong in between. Why do we lose that really important 25%? Why do they go down to 7%?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Good point. I think the thing is, it's all to play play for, it's all to go at, really. So I mean, I think you're right, and any events that are hitting those things. I mean, I think that's why, you know, with if we get the student population aware of what the BCS is and its benefits, and also the local, because we do local, the local, you know, larger organizations, and you start to build a bit of a value there. So I think it's a long-term thing. There's no quick fix here, but yeah, I fully agree and support with what you're saying. So you know, that's maybe the thing to do as a committee. We should maybe have a bit of an action plan of what we think we can do, and
Yeah.
let's see which activity, you know, hits which thing, really. That'd be good. Okay.
If I can just chip in, just echoing Sandra's comments, there is the Women in Tech Festival, which is only a week away, which is being run by Computing, you know, the magazine, computing.co.uk, and it's free, and it's a digital event. So that might be something, yeah, perhaps we should publicise a little bit more. I'll get it through my obviously Computing membership as such. But that's,
well, certainly if you send me the
so I'll send you the details, and then
if you send me the link, I can distribute that to our membership. Yeah. But the issue is, of course, you see, this is it again, that we've got a membership of 525, and so that's what we get. That's who we're able to contact. But actually, what we're really after is non-members.
Yes.
Which we can't get to, right? Yeah.
In the past, you know, Fiona, one of the staff at Staff's Uni, she's organised a Women in IT event at the university. Perhaps that's something we could look at as one of our events. You know, the Keele Staff's sort of Women in IT. We get some guest speakers, and also try and encourage the female. You know, Jessica was with us tonight. You know, there's your typical, future BCS computing lady.
Sure.
Perhaps we should have some sort of event to promote women in IT.
Yeah, I'm sure as well. Obviously, the company I work for, Synetics, obviously, CEO Carol Shanahan, perfect example there. I'm sure I could coax her into doing some sort of talk for us as well.
One of the speakers in mind. I know she gets called for everything, but that'd be great.
She does, yeah. That's the problem. I think she's spreading herself a little thin at the moment.
She's got hats,
but if not Carol, certainly her daughter Kate would probably be up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great. There's one speaker already.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant, good, thank you. So that's all seems very positive. Any other comments on the chair report?
No,
thank you. Going back to the agenda.
Great. Yeah, thanks for putting it all together. That was great. A lot of detail.
Yes, thank you, Charlie.
Rather the template doesn't inspire sometimes, but there's some great content. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Then moving on to our treasurer's report, and I don't know if you can see that. Okay, but Chris, I don't know if you want to talk to this, or if you got something else you prefer to present.
Okay, just coming off mute. This report is actually produced by BCS. Charlie's gone into some depth as to the work that went into keeping BCS going, basically, over the last 12 months. It's not so much events which have run, but things that have largely gone on in the background, if you will. From my perspective, or from the treasurer's perspective, as a branch, we have an amount of money to use on events, and last year we didn't really have any physical events as such. So just cutting to the report, it's very small on my screen. I don't know if everybody else can see it. I've got the original in front of me. It's really the last 4 columns that are the summary of what's gone on, and we were allocated £2,875.38. Don't ask. last year. And of that amount of money, we actually spent £530, which was 18.43% of the budget. So we spent well short of what we were allowed. We're not allowed to carry money forward or carry money over. And the actual funds are held by BCS Central. So at the end of the year, any money that's not spent is taken back by BCS Central, and they reallocate funds again for next year. Perhaps worth just saying that the spreadsheet that you're looking at the moment is the one for August. August is the final month of the BCS year. September starts the next year. So this is up to August. So we spent 18.43% of the budget. The remainder gets taken back by BCS. This year, and things have changed this year due to the COVID, or the effects of COVID at least, we were allocated the same amount as we were last year. Normally we put in a bid for what we're expecting to spend for the forthcoming year, but the bidding process changed this year, and we were allowed to, or we were allocated the same amount again for the next year. There is another sheet, Charlie. I don't know if you are able to do it, but there are.
No, I haven't. I've only converted this one to PDF, and I haven't got Excel on this machine. Sorry. So,
okay.
But you're welcome to present if you wish.
There's precious little, to be perfectly honest with you, precious little to present. But on the other sheet, it does actually break down where the expenditure was made, and I'm looking at the other sheet now, and £300 of it was was sponsorship for GradX, and the remainder was for student prizes. So, you know, as I say, there's not a huge amount of money which was spent. So £300 on GradX and £250 on prizes and membership. Excuse me. And that was the only activity for the year. So from me, really fairly short and sweet. Any questions?
Hey, Chris? I wouldn't say a question really, but it's just really a point of information for everybody. Well, the committee really. I mean, we're planning some different sorts of things at the moment. So we've got the equivalent amount of money, 2875. So what we need to do is be thinking if we're going to go above that for the year, you know, because we're not going to do that much this side of the Christmas, I guess, but it's going to really kick off next calendar year. So if we need any other further money, we've got to apply separately for that, haven't we?
We have. Can I just put in there?
Yeah, of course.
We have, which is no problem. We can apply by all means. But what we do have to bear in mind is that there is no guarantee that it'll be granted.
No.
What I would say, kind of off the record, if you like, is that when I've applied for money previously, provided that we justify it well, I have not been refused, but that is always a possibility.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, I think particularly, I think it's probably not sensible to target special funding for the BCS HCI conference, because it's a bit of a conflict of BCS sponsoring itself almost. But what we can do is we can use some of this funding here to run an event, and that's the North Staffordshire branch, you know, so that's fine. It's in our budget. But I'm thinking about anything else really that we might want to do. Like we mentioned, a event for particularly focusing on you know, tech women or underrepresented, or even you know, tech early career type things. Well, you know, let's think that through, I suppose, and see if we can, because they are going to be, you know, BCS itself rather than, BCS North Staffs branch running the event as opposed to being at the BCS conference type thing, then that would lend itself more towards that funding. So if we can think, if we can think that way, that'd be yes, Andrea.
Yeah, actually, Charlie, I was beginning to think of some way of BCS North Staffs having an event at the conference, so having a presence.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this, and you know, kind of sponsoring a session that is for the region, and that going on at the same time, because I think there's going to be some synergy to the BCS conference. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a real opportunity for us to, like, platform the name of the BCS and what it stands for. And so, yeah, you've got the conference bit, but you've also got the local branch bit as well, you know, and that. So I think there is something, you just need to sort of plan that through. But I mean, obviously today's not a committee meeting, but you know, so anyway, it was just a thought on the budget, on the additional funding. We need to think that through. But that's it. That's the only thing from me. So thanks, Chris. Thank you for your support this year. Any other questions for Chris? No. Okay. Back to the old agenda. Treasurer. Now we come to the election. So I'll go back to here. That helps. So we got most people here that are willing to step forward again. So if we just run down the list, obviously. What we need to do for John's benefit, who's taken the minutes, is we need to make sure that we've got clear proposers and seconders, and then we take a vote and then we move on. Okay. So if we start with chairperson, I'm prepared to stand again. So we need a proposer.
Yep, I'll propose that.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Can we take a vote on that? Show of hands. Electronic hands, or are we happy? I can't vote for myself, obviously. So, okay, that can be carried.
Okay. Got it.
You should ask if there's anyone else, Charlie.
Sorry?
You should ask if anybody else wants to stand.
Yes. Well, sorry, I said it at the start of the meeting, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if any of these rules that anybody else would like to put their names forward, having thought about it since the start of the AGM, you know, I would probably have decided. So, yeah, please, you're very welcome to come forward and offer your support. Really,
I think most people seem fairly sane, but
yeah, okay.
So right. No takers.
No, okay. So we now have actually vice chair and secretary. Now they don't go together, in the sense that they don't have to go together. There can be a vice chair and a secretary, separate roles. They just happen to go together. Under the current thing, so we'll take them separately, just to be correct. So first we'll do vice chair, and I shall propose Jonathan.
Yep, seconded.
Anybody else like to stand? Nope. Take a vote. Okay. Then go on to secretary. I should propose Jonathan.
I'll second that.
Anybody else like to stand? Take a vote. Okay. Then we move on to treasurer. Does anybody else want to propose Chris?
I'll propose Chris, please.
Okay.
Thanks,
Oh,
Chris.
you were my friend.
I'll second that. Would anybody else like to stand to be proposed? No. So we take a vote on Chris then. All right, carried. Then we're into the inclusion officer role, because it's a mandatory role. I'd like to propose, and fingers crossed, propose Richard.
I'd like to
I'll
second
second
it.
that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Would anybody else like to stand? Everybody else takes a step back. Can we take a vote on that? Very much. Then we're into early career advocate role. Now we haven't met Jake, but does somebody want to? Do you want to propose Jake at this stage, Jonathan, or
Yes,
Jake?
please. I'd like to.
Do you feel that you want to wait a bit and find out what's going on?
No need to wait. I know Jake, and we've
Is he
seen each other most of it.
definitely prepared to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
More than happy.
Brilliant.
I propose
So Jonathan proposed. Can we have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Anybody else like to stand? Because we haven't got anybody else to stand probably for it, but you can fit that profile. But yeah, brilliant. Welcome aboard, Jake.
Thank you.
So sorry, I haven't voted, have we? Let's vote. Yeah. Okay, I was getting carried away there, getting so excited.
Cheers, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you. And then we need to propose Sandra. Sandra, I propose Sandra.
I'd like to second it.
Do we know what for?
Well,
Education.
technically speaking, it's as a committee rule, but it's with the portfolio of her choice, which happens to be education liaison.
It's portfolio roles, these, aren't they?
Because these are like general committee rules that have got portfolios, you see.
Yeah, I've got it in the minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so that's we've got 4 seconds to go. Shall we have a vote? We don't need to ask anybody else because these are just anybody else that wants to stand can. That's fine. Then we're going to propose Colin. I'll propose Colin.
Yep. And that's so these.
Yeah, that's just to stand as a committee member.
Oh yeah.
Hoping he'll take
the
same portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we have a seconder?
Yeah, that'll be me. I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we vote? Fantastic. Then we've got Ian Sunley. I'll definitely propose Ian because if we need Ian back.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'll third that actually.
Okay. Can we have a vote then quickly while he's not here? Right.
Why do you think he's not here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'll propose Tim.
Yes.
So we're a seconder for Tim.
I'll second that for Tim.
Thank you. And can we have a vote? Excellent.
Last time I was at an election like this, John Hopkins was chair. Secretary.
So I think we've covered everything. Now, somebody on the committee on this meeting, call if you're still there. Do you want to be? Would you be in all seriousness? I mean, I know we've gone through the motions to a degree, but because we have to, that's kind of the constitution. We have to go through this process, and But call if you're listening, and you are interested in, even if you wanted just to sit in the committee meetings for a while. You'd be very welcome if you're interested to learn more about what we do, what we don't do, what we should be doing. We really are a very inclusive bunch, really. I can say this now because we've got a new committee, but as well as the membership that we were given, we are also were awarded a free meal out on the BCS HQ, which we couldn't have had because of COVID. So, Jake, for you, that's an absolute double win. You've done nothing for the committee, and you've got free membership for the year, and you've got you've got burger and chips. So that's quite good, huh? Yeah.
You just got to buy the drinks.
I'm liking this already.
Yeah. So, but obviously we'll make it so that once all the committees available. But in all seriousness, if you do wish to join the committee, even in a non-portfolio role for a while or whatever, then you'll be made very, very welcome.
I'll just put my email there, Cole, in the chat, and then you can always just email if you have a think about it. Then you can get in touch.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thanks for that.
So it's just coming up now. There it is.
Lovely. Thanks, Jonathan. Now, I don't know about Camilla. Genuinely don't. She hasn't responded, so I don't know. Camilla is a fantastic addition to the committee last year for Key University Student Chapter Liaison. Camilla's no longer as part of, she's now a postgraduate, I think is correct. So
Yeah.
she's not in this with the student chapter anymore. And unfortunately, though, the student chapter don't wish to take up a liaison role on our committee, or they told us they didn't anyway, told me they didn't anyway. I am in contact. Look, you know, at the end of the day, that's entirely their choice, because it's not like there's no formal link between a branch and a student chapter. It doesn't have to be. It's not mandatory at all. It's just something we tried to do. Camilla was willing to do that. So that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Okay. But we will keep asking. We'll keep that portfolio vacant. And if somebody changes their mind, well, that's fine too.
Charlie, I got the impression Camilla, even if it wasn't through the liaison role, should still be interested in being a committee member.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah, so perhaps if I drop her an email and just ask if she wants to just do a
I did
member.
Actually, because I suggested only through Basecamp.
Yeah.
Because Jake, we have a system called Basecamp we use to manage the committee notes and so on. So through that, but yeah, by all means, drop a direct email.
I'll drop her an email
and see really. I mean,
no.
Yeah, very, very welcome. Very welcome. Yeah. You know, and bear in mind, you know, Sandra's point about female representation as well. You know, we want to get ideas going about what's the best thing to do. You know, we do. We definitely do. You know, so
I think that could be the sort of the angle really. I think that would, without it interrupting her postgraduate studies, it could be something she can use for postgraduate.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is, you know, because we've got this concept of portfolios, there's no reason why Camilla couldn't take a portfolio to support you know, women in tech.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds great.
There's absolutely no reason why not. That's the whole reason we've done it this way. Is because what we want to do is have portfolios that people are actually interested in doing.
Yeah.
Well, because
we could suggest that to her, couldn't we?
Yeah, we absolutely could. You know, so if you're speaking to her, Sandra, that's something she might want to think about. You know. But no pressure either way. Again, it's got to be voluntary and it's got to be something you want to do, because you don't get paid for it. Well, you get a free membership for this 1 year and you get a free meal for 1 year. So I don't know if that's payment, but it's certainly better than what we've had in the past, probably.
It'd be pity to lose her.
It would be, yeah. It would be. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that, everybody. I think that kind of brings us to a conclusion. We've erected everybody, so we're all back in post again. So welcome back, team. Thank you for all your support. And here's to a busy year ahead. I do think it's going to be a little bit lumpy because of COVID and because of other things, really. But I think if we can try and get maybe a hybrid meeting, you know, out in early December, that might be nice. But maybe we have to wait to the new year now. With the timescale we've got, that might be probably sensible. And who knows? Come the summer, we could all be having even a get together with you know, some kind of like a trip or something. Who knows? But we'll see. We'll see. Okay, then just finally, then point number 8 before we look to close. Has anybody got anything else they'd like to raise this evening? Any other concerns, suggestions, comments? We'll take that as a no.
I was just going to mention about the trip next year. There's so much development going on at Keele. There's I think some good sort of opportunities there, probably for a visit to some of the buildings they've got there, the innovation buildings which are going on.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But certainly, if we've got, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could do something. Maybe that's what we could do. Actually,
yeah,
we could. Well, what I'm thinking is, because the HCI conference is in July. So we could organise a trip maybe around that, really, you know, come to the conference and see around. I don't know if maybe, would there be too much happening? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not a committee meeting, is it? So yeah.
I was going to mention that I'm really delighted that we've been given the go-ahead to use one of the new innovation buildings for our conference. So I'm so pleased we've been given this lovely smart innovation hub, the sort of angular building as you come in to Keele itself for the conference day. So you could do two things at the same time: come to the conference and visit the new buildings.
Yeah, brilliant.
There's also the sustainability centre at the far end, isn't there, Sandra?
Yeah,
that's a separate visit in its own right, I think, probably.
There's two things. There's the sort of home farm, you know, the sustainable building, and then there's the smart energy.
That's it. Smart energy. That's what I was saying. That's
Yeah,
amazing
brilliant.
how that's developed. Yeah.
Might that be a thought for AGM next year?
Yeah, possibly so. We could maybe try and do it hybridy from there. That'd be good. Okay, so I mean, I think there's lots of things that we can maybe take forward to a committee meeting. Yeah, so let's think about that. So if there's nothing else to add, we are now actually on time. What a fantastic chairperson I must be. Both meetings finished on time, so there we are.
One
all
thing I would
seriousness,
say, Charlie, sorry, just very briefly, is that
Yeah.
thank you to Carl and Jake for sticking with us through the formal AGM, and obviously as they're not normally with us, do they actually have any questions for us as a group at this present time? Yeah.
No questions at the moment. Just like to say thanks for having me.
Great stuff, thank you.
Cole, anything you'd like to add? I don't know if you're there, Cole. I don't know if you're there at all. You haven't said a word. Who knows? Anyway, you're very welcome. By all means, contact Jonathan. You got the email address there. You're very, very welcome to get further involved if you so wish. Guys, look, thanks very much for your time. It's 9 o'clock.
Brilliant.
So
thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, guys. You take care, and we'll speak soon, and certainly Basecamp quite quickly. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.